Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
In 1951, while attempting to scale Mount Everest, Eric Shipton came across an area with several large footprints, which he took photos of. These photos would add fuel to an already hot topic in the area and abroad, and be used as evidence for the creature that the local Sherpa called Yeti, the rock or cliff animal. The world would call it the Yeti. Tibetan cultural images describe Yetis as ape-like, with long arms, powerful torso, conical head covered with long brown and reddish hair. Some say it's a deity or a guardian of a sacred mountain where such deities are said to dwell. Is the Yeti more than just a tale for tourists? Is it related to multiple UFO sightings in the area? Or are we just looking at more proof that the creature we all call Bigfoot has relatives all over the world? Join us as we look at the history of the Yeti on this episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast. This week's episode is gonna get kind of seasonal, kind of not, but definitely wild and weird.
Oh yeah.
We're going to take a deep dive into the topic of the Yeti. So hang in there. It's going to be a good one. What's going on, everybody?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I had a very, very exciting weekend. You know that. You were there.
Yeah, I was there. It was a good time. Jess, how's things been going on your end?
Really good. We tackled a lot of Christmas stuff this weekend, so we had to get all that out of the way. That way we're done for the month, and just got a lot of housekeeping done with that. So
that's awesome.
That sounds tiring.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yes.
So Ron, we're gonna be bringing in a new topic here that we're gonna be going over, and go ahead and lead us in.
Well, that would be the Wild and Weird news, right? So I guess what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of go over a couple of little things that may stand out, newsworthy, that are kind of weird or might have gotten missed or something like that, right? So, yeah, I'll start off. Actually, this one is kind of interesting. It came from Ancient Origins article. And what is really strange that I found out about this is that this was from May of 2021, and it did not get a lot of publicity. But we'll link over to the description of what this is and the site and whatnot. But basically, what it comes down to is a meteorite was found with a small inclusion, a small cylindrical inclusion. And preliminary studies show that the little cylindrical metal inclusion inside there, it is not made of the same thing as the meteorite.
That's odd.
Yeah, it's very odd.
So now, could that mean that like this meteorite collided with another meteorite at some point and just kind of swapped paint with it?
If that other object turns out to be a meteorite, yes. At this point, it's supposedly in the research in this thing. So I look forward to seeing more about this, definitely, because we said this.
It almost looked like a shell casing.
That's kind of what I thought too.
Isn't it weird? I know that one commenter on one of the threads said something like, "Oh, it's just a, I believe it was a 6mm socket. We find those all the time."
No. 10 millimeter. That's the one that goes missing all the time. Is the 10 millimeter?
It's a 10mm socket. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's the one that always misses out of everybody's.
So we know where they go now.
Set.
They apparently materialize in space inside of meteorites. And then they fall in the northwest African desert where they're collected and sold to meteorite collectors.
Duh.
That tracks.
I mean, that's it.
I'm
So
with you.
this mystery's solved. Sorry. Boom. Just like that. Done.
Good work, everybody.
Good job.
Well, the one I've got to bring up to the table is actually 2 hoaxes that got busted this week. One of them is a now viral YouTube video that is going around where this dude is allegedly getting Bigfoot activity. So this is all over all the Bigfoot groups.
Okay.
And he's out in the woods doing recordings. And there was a handful of us that as soon as this video appeared and we listened to it, that are, I guess, what you would consider the Bigfoot historians, so to speak. We're the ones that are into all the Bigfoot stuff that goes all the way back. Well, this guy, I guess, didn't think that any of us was going to catch it. Well, we did. Now he's getting, exposed for trying to hoax everybody because he was using cleaned up versions of the Sierra sounds.
Oh, my.
And he was chopping them up and moving them in different places. So he was saying he was getting like these hoops that were being like just constant, like whoop, whoop, whoop kind of thing. Well, if anybody's ever listened to the Sierra sounds, you will know that is a very, very recognizable sound.
It's very distinct.
Very distinct. And he used those, and then he also used the wood knocks from the Sierra sounds, and it didn't get by us. So
can I say something to this, because this is hilarious to me? Okay, for you guys who want to do this stuff, you need to understand that there's basic technology now. It doesn't take rocket science. It doesn't take audio engineers. We have basic technology that can literally show us the waveforms, and we can match them up. It's not CSI anymore. We can do it now. So
we can do it right in our home.
Wow.
And the bad part is you didn't even need a waveform for this.
Wow.
Yeah, probably don't pick the best piece of audio evidence that exists and chop it up and pass it off as something new, because anybody who has done this work or this research for any amount of time has heard the Sierra sounds over and over and over.
Over.
Like I've listened to them in my sleep. So no, you cannot get that past it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that guy got busted, and that's all on its way out. Now, the other is a video that was sent in by an alleged game warden, and it was of a Bigfoot fishing. Well, anybody who's watched any kind of nature documentary recognizes this silhouette for what it is. Anybody who actually studies any kind of ursids understands what kind of shape this thing is, especially the fishing habits and the way it's fishing. So this guy posts up a video of a bear, sends it in, says it's a Bigfoot, and strategically freezes it in this specific frame that looks like a creature standing with its arms out like this. But in reality, what it is the image of the bear turning around away from the river, getting up out of the river. You're seeing a shot between and through the legs of the bear. And it's just pareidoia, guys. And for whatever reason, I don't know why a game warden would look like he's doing jumping jacks while trying to record a video. But that's what this video looks like. It's like, yeah. Here, I'll give you a sample. This is what the video looks like, and it drove me crazy just trying to watch it. But it's totally a bear, and so don't fall into this one, guys. This is a bear. You can, if you actually watch the full clip and not just the cut segment, and you find the original uploaded video, you can actually see the ears post top of the bear's head. So, last time I checked, they didn't have Bigfoot doesn't have nice round ears. So,
well,
that one's a bear.
If he materializes as a giant, gummy bear, he could have
It
ears.
could be.
We've got something
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Too bad this one didn't like just start bouncing away on its butt and
Right.
the Gummy Bears
I
song.
and hear the song in my head, so I need to stop now. Oh man, that's got to go. Oh,
Well,
no.
anything else on the wild and weird news? Oh, I know there's one. There's one. Did you get to see it, Jess?
Did I get to see what?
Last night?
The
Starlink.
the Starlink thing? No.
Oh,
It was
man.
impressive.
It was impressive.
Okay.
So it was getting reported all over the East Coast. People were seeing Starlink the last 2 nights in a row, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, like I said, it's very, very impressive seeing this thing.
It's easy to see how it gets mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So-
very easy to see.
I have to be 100% honest. Last night was the first time I had seen it at the distance that it's at now. The first time I saw it, it was when it was closer to Earth, and it was just like dots moving across the sky in sequence. But now, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
There I am.
Yeah.
See,
There it
you
is
spoke
again.
ill. You spoke ill.
I know. The first time
Yeah.
that I saw it, it was just dots moving across the sky. And now it is farther away in orbit. And what we saw, had I not known it was Starlink,
Mhm.
like even seeing it, knowing what it was, I just had this weird feeling. It was a really weird feeling seeing this massive,
Oh, yeah, it's
massive,
huge.
because it was like,
Huge.
if you had put your hand out in front of you, it was longer than what your hand would be in the sky.
Yeah.
And so it was like easily at visible range, 6 inches long,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
just
It-
moving across the sky at an incredible rate of speed. And it was so unnerving.
Yeah, it's easy to see how it got, reported everywhere, literally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
as,
saw the videos on that.
yeah, it was something. It was really something. So what you got, Jess, to bring up to the news table, the news
I-
desk, right?
It's kind of short and sweet. Well, not very sweet at all. So there's been a couple of mysterious animal attacks occurring in Tennessee, around Newport, Tennessee. So the first one occurred on April 1st in the spring. The second one occurred in July 12th in the summer. And recently, around that area, we have a fellow researcher who's been working in the area who is reporting that there's been a lot of people going missing in that area. And so it's just a spate of mysterious animal attacks that are in the news 1 minute, and then they're out of the news the next minute. You hear no follow-up, no more information about it, nothing. One of the victims, this is a quote from the article, she had so many wounds that they couldn't even count them. So, but it was definitely a mysterious animal attack. But the researcher that we know that is working in Tennessee that we are in contact with is telling us that he's having insane activity around this area and that he thinks that these things are connected. So we're staying in touch with him. We are possibly going up to go and do some work with him. So this is a to be continued situation.
Wow, that's that's a topper.
So these lacerations that they're seeing, are they deep? Are they shallow? Combination, or what's it look like?
No information in any of these articles. I've read a ton of articles about it, and it was like a spate of articles, and then all of a sudden nothing. And you can't even get in touch with these people's families right now, because that's something I try to do. Is I try to get in touch with people to get more information, but I can't get in touch with anybody right now, so I don't know. But it was reported as mysterious animal attack.
Wow. Well, that's one way to, yeah.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting follow-up.
We'll have to look into those for sure. Definitely let us know. Keep us updated on that one, because that is a trip.
Yeah. So yeah, and this is something I like to do is look at different, news stories that are similar to this, because they're everywhere and they're in the news and then they're gone. And this happens all the time. So this is something that Joe and I do. We look into these and kind of go a little further with it and see if this is maybe connected to something paranormal, because a lot of times, reporters, the news stations, everybody, they'll talk about it, it's a thing, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and then you hear nothing about it.
That's pretty much the par for the course for anything that's, probably real. Something they can't quite explain.
Anytime
Right?
something else can come up and bury a topic, they like to do that.
Any one of those X-Files type things. Well, folks, that right there was the very first edition of the Wild and Weird News, and you can look for that every week here on the radio. And now I guess we're going to get to the topic, right?
Yep, time to dive into the Yeti, the abominable snowman, the mystical ape of the Himalayas.
Oh, guys, I did a search on coolers.
Oh, crap. I did a search about that little thing on Rudolph. I mean, I watched, do you know how many times I watched that?
So that's actually a pretty good tie-in there, Ron, because everybody's familiar with the Yeti. And when you think Yeti, when you think the abominable snowman, you think of a white-haired, blue-skinned kind of creature, right? I mean, it's been depicted that way on screen every single time, just about. But the very first one to put that white and blue skin to screen was actually Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Wow.
Back the old claymation stop motion photography, you had this Bumble, the abominable snowman, this massive white creature that lived up in the mountains.
Everybody loves Bumble. Don't you take this away from them. Don't you explain Bumble away.
I love Bumble. Bumble was my favorite character.
Don't do this. Be careful. Eggshells.
But that is what somehow, again, we've covered this in past episodes, how pop culture influences actual creatures and all these different sighting reports. And this just happens to be one of those cases. But the origin of the Yeti traces back into the Himalayas with the Nepalese people and the Sherpas, and it isn't this monstrous white furred blue skinned creature. It's actually normally reported as a dark brown fur to black fur or black hair, very Bigfoot like. And the person to really put the Yeti on the map is actually one of the legends in Bigfoot lore. And that would be none other than Mr. Peter Byrne himself. So does anybody know anything about Peter Byrne?
No, you're going to tell us. Because
I'm going to tell you guys about Peter Byrne. All right.
Yes.
Well, Peter Byrne was
we're playing the audience. We are playing, Ron and Jessi will be playing part of the audience today as Joe narrates to us the history of most of the early Yeti sightings. And you're up, Joe.
So Peter Byrne went out. He went out on these expeditions. He's a man from England who wound up becoming a U.S. citizen and leaving the hunt for the Yeti behind, and began his quest for the abominable snowman of the United States, Bigfoot. And but prior to that, he built his career in searching for all these mythical creatures and as a pioneer in cryptozoology. And his research was being funded by a gentleman that we actually know quite well in the Bigfoot community. He was being funded and money was being sent his way by Mr. Tom Slick.
The man himself.
The man himself. And all these expeditions that took place in the Himalayas, they really turned up nothing. Big old goose egg until the infamous Yeti footprint was discovered. Now, there's a lot of problems with this Yeti footprint.
Why don't you describe that Yeti footprint for everybody?
Well, I can do you one better.
I mean, I'm going to put a shot of it. Yeah, well, I'm going to actually put a shot to it. Go ahead.
A picture of the Yeti footprint. Now, this Yeti footprint has a divergent big toe. This is not something you expect out of any kind of relic hominid or any great ape, not in the manner of divergent toe that the Yeti had. Generally, if you see in great apes a divergent toe, it's actually going to look more like my hand. Mm-hmm. Whereas with this creature, the toe was much more set forward and was still divergent. Now, in years past, this print has been identified as actually a bear. There's a species of bear that lives in Nepal and in the Himalayas that while it's young, it has a divergent big toe on its rear foot, and it uses that to climb trees because the adult specimens are actually highly cannibalistic. but they get very large. So while these small cubs are able to retreat up a tree, generally until they're 2 to 3 years of age, and then their foot goes through this metamorphosis, and then their foot looks more like a traditional hind foot of a bear. But prior to that, they have that divergent toe that looks just like what the toe was found in the Yeti footprint. Now, this Yeti footprint, which we now know is a bear, had a couple other issues because there was a plaster cast that began floating around back in the day. And when you start looking into this, they were taking this as proof, saying this is what the footprint, this is a plaster cast of the Yeti footprint. However, it was not quite a plaster cast of what they found in the snow. They had an artist sculpt this track based off of photos and depth measurements and exact measurements of length, width, etc. And it was sculpted to look the way this Yeti's footprint would have looked. And then this was being passed off as the real genuine article. Okay. And it wasn't an attempt at really trying to hoax anybody. It's just that they weren't exactly forthcoming with all the data right out front. It wasn't until later that Peter Byrne actually came out and said, no, this was actually an artist rendition, but the media was taking this rendition and running with it. And all of a sudden we have this Yeti footprint. But
so this was a model is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It was a model, a visual aid that someone made based upon the actual photo
and the media just ran with it.
Okay. Well, we haven't seen anything like that before. I mean, that's
no, that doesn't happen.
No.
That print has been noted as the Shipton print.
That's right.
And it was found while attempting to scale Mount Everest by Eric Shipton, and on his 1951 expedition. And then the photos were taken, and then the artist rendition was made, and Peter Byrne was the one that busted the bubble that this was not an actual track cast.
Right, it was a recreation. Now, my question is, okay, so they're out there, allegedly, they see something, right? Is that how the story goes? And then they found the tracks. Is it something like that? Is that how this broke down?
There was this sighting that took place, and they saw a dark figure that looked like it was moving on two legs, but at this kind of an altitude, you're not really dealing with flat land much. You're dealing with very steep inclines once you reach a specific, think anything over 4,000, 5,000 feet. Yeah. So you're looking at these steep mountain walls. Anything making any kind of ascent or descent is almost going to look like it's moving on two legs. So it's easy to mistake this kind of movement. So they looked, and these were the prints that they found. And, the description, the collar and everything did actually fit what this bear would have looked like, having thick, dark fur and kind of longer.
Well, it was cold, so probably not. I was going to say, could melting have anything to do with the size of the actual, print being any bigger or whatnot?
Normally at that altitude, you're not really going to have a whole lot of that. So it's one of those things where this is actually just the shape of this print.
Yeah, gotcha.
But when all this came out, it really kind of stabbed and poked a hole in the Yeti lore. However, there was a whole lot more that was going on behind this other than the Shipton prints.
Mm-hmm.
You still had sightings being reported by Sherpa. You still had sightings being reported by the Nepalese people that lived in the villages. But they were not at these ridiculous high altitudes. They were down in the foothills of the Himalayas. They were down in the valleys, in the lowlands, where the forest is lush.
Yeah. The Sherpa, you just brought it up there. I mean, to them, this isn't a matter of does it exist.
Right.
It's a matter of this is just a part of us. We know it exists.
And this is the same thing with native peoples of our, of around here, is they have stories and they have lore and they have seen these things. They've seen Sasquatch and they've seen a bear. They know the difference between this creature and a bear. I mean, they've been a part of this land and been doing this, and their families have been here for generations and generations and generations. You would think that give them a little credit here. They know the difference between something else and a bear, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
absolutely, Jess. I mean, and one of the things that you had said, that abominable snowman, that whole thing. I did find the mention of where that came from, and that was a misquote, another misquote, a media misquote. Imagine that, guys.
That never happens. What are you talking about?
I know it was a complete, complete. Just it never happens, like you said. It never happens. But
it was like a mistranslation.
It was a mistranslation.
The word actually meant like unwashed snowman, and unwashed became abominable when they made the report. But it was like, was it a British reporter that did this?
It was who was it? It was Henry Newman is the one who did it. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where he was from, but yeah, he's the one who kind of misquoted it or mistranslated it, like you said. And I think it's funny that it actually could have translated to either, like you said, man bear or snowman. That's kind of funny. And there's the man bear, right? So there's the bear thing again. So.
Yep.
But that also calls into, play later on, because we find out that that's kind of what these things are. They're like a cross between an animal and a human. And some of the mythology actually, explains that.
So before we get off of, Peter Byrne, have we talked about Peter Byrne, Tom Slick, and Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah, well, that's where we're going next. If you want to dive in, go for it.
Okay, so I love this story.
It's a great story. It is such a good story.
Byrne smuggled this finger out of a monastery, smuggled the finger out, took it to India. So Tom Slick was this oil baron. He was very eccentric. He was an aviator, but he knew a lot of celebrities and a lot of different people. So he was actually good friends with Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart was an aviator. He was a veteran, and they became good friends. So in order to get this finger out of India and through customs and everything, he convinced Jimmy Stewart to smuggle it for him. And what he did was take the finger and put it in his wife's lingerie case. And so when they would open it up, it's ladies' lingerie. This is the 50s, so this is
very prudent. People were just going to be like, oh.
They're not going to peruse a lady's underwear for a missing Yeti finger. So They got it out. They took it to get tested.
Wow.
And then the finger went missing forever.
Oh, really?
They said they donated it. They gave it to they gave it to a university or something, but nobody has any record of where it is. It's gone forever. And the DNA results were spotty at best. Mostly said that it was human, basically. They think that it may have been the finger of a monk from the monastery that it was absconded from. So, but it's kind of a cool story that Jimmy Stewart, stuffed a Yeti finger into his wife's lingerie case.
And with the finger coming back mostly human, it doesn't necessarily rule out some kind of human ancestor as well. But a monk, just following Occam's razor here, a monk is probably the most likely case.
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know where to go with that. I'm not going to touch it. I mean, I'm really not going to touch it.
There was another relic that was also tested.
Which one is this? The scalp or?
This is the scalp.
Yeah, that's a good story.
So the scalp, the alleged Yeti scalp is being kept at the Komjong Monastery. And the Komjong Monastery is one of the last monasteries that you go past while you're taking your trip to Everest. So people go there quite often for, the blessing of the native culture to go and ascend the mountain. And so they'll go there, they'll spin the prayer wheels, they'll get, blessed and whatnot. And up until, I think here in the last decade, 2 decades, the camera took a dump.
Yeti got him.
The Yeti, I got abducted. So up until the last 2 decades, this scalp was actually kept under lock and key in a glass box, and it was able to be observed. But since it's been removed and pulled away from public view. But the scalp had also been researched, and a hair was plucked from it. And it is, once they checked the hair, it clearly was not a Yeti scalp. And it belonged to some kind of a buffalo of some sort, like
it was a gopal, I believe. It's a Himalayan goat.
Yes, a gopal. And now, if you listen to the monks, they'll say, "Oh, well, that wasn't the actual scalp." That's their take, is that wasn't the actual scalp. That this was that was just one that they put out for people to see. The actual one is too precious and too holy to be put out on public display for people, anybody that's not a monk, to actually be in close proximity with. And then there was also a hand that was on display as well, because the finger came from a hand. Yeah. Well, one of the fingers that was taken, now it left this, 4-fingered hand left. Well, then the hand turns up missing and it disappears. And since then, the hand has been remade by, I believe it was some folks either at ILM or Weta Workshop, remade the hand, and it's just gigantic. It's way bigger than what the original was, but it looks like the pictures. These guys are professional artists. They made this gorgeous replica to go back in to be able to be put on display. And because it's not so much the fact that this is no longer an actual Yeti hand, but it is the symbology that what it is that holds the value and holds the sacred place there for these people. Now, when you take into consider the Pangboche scalp and the missing hand that was replaced with a new hand, and the scalp that is on display versus the possibility of a scalp being not on display and being held back, you start getting into question, like, what is it? Are they trying to protect? What are they trying to keep everybody from?
When you have any kind of relics or anything like that, it's very common with relics that this kind of stuff happens anyway. With the Catholic Church at Notre Dame, they have it's a display of the crown of thorns.
Yes.
When it caught on fire a few years ago, I think 2019, somebody took it out and saved it, but they have on display what is a relic of the crown of thorns. The only thing in the actual relic that is from the crown of thorns, according to, canon and everything, is, I think, just a single thorn, but they've recreated the crown of thorns around a single thorn. So it's very common with these relics that there's recreations and everything like that, because you have all of these people that come to these places and they're pilgrims to these places, and these relics mean everything to them, even if it's just a representation of those relics. It's very important to these people.
Absolutely.
Perfect sense. I mean, and it's important to understand where this is at. This is a very sacred and holy site to these people.
Absolutely.
The only way that you can actually reach this land is to fly in.
Yeah.
This is a region that is literally tucked away, forgotten by time, and nestled in this small pocket of mountains.
Right.
They're very, very closely knit to everything around them. They live on the land and off the land. So everything that's there is very sacred to them. Everything holds extreme value. And like Jessi was saying, whether this is just a representation, that's what is sacred to them. Not so much that this is the actual one we're seeing, but it's there and it's observed as the real thing.
There was recently something that happened. It was in, I think, 2020. The Nepalese government had a program where they were trying to increase tourism. And so they have these statues that they made, and it was supposed to be a representation of the Yeti. and it was a big thing. They cost a lot of money to build these statues, put them all over the place. But the Nepalese people were very angry about these statues because they were like, these do not look like Yeti at all. These look like a sumo wrestler. These look like a gorilla. These do not look like Yeti. And they were just, the Nepalese people were angry about it because the Yeti holds so much significance to these people that even if their government tries to do a program where they represent it in some way, if it's represented in the wrong way and it's not correct because they know what is correct because they have heard these stories or they've seen them themselves, then it angers them because it's absolutely false and it's insulting to them.
It is insulting. And when people come and try to, discredit these things, and like I said, it's a very sacred place. The Himalayans are a very sacred place. They are honestly, they have legends that would, blow your mind. I mean, that's the home, the legendary home of, what is it, Shambhala, the sacred mountains where the gods actually reside in. These are, and I'll say this too, massive amounts of UFO sightings in these areas. Okay. So got to put that out there. Hollow mountains, gods living in mountains, UFOs, you do the rest. But the thing is, we have what here with all this? Why not? Why not a strange creature? I mean, we see that here. So why is it any different that it would be somewhere else? And, some of my favorite things was when I was actually doing this. Again, I'm not a Bigfoot guy. I've said this a million times, but I do find it interesting when I see the same descriptions of things, around the world. Be that UFOs, Yetis, or, ghosts or what have you. But one of the really cool things that I thought was the fact that the Tibetan culture images describe the Yeti as an ape-like rather than bear-like, because so many are, well, it's bear-like, it's a bear, it's a bear, because they do say that it can go from all fours to standing upright.
But you get that with a lot of Bigfoot reports too.
You do. You get that with when we've seen, alleged pictures, right? They're hairless. Their face is hairless, not their body. Their hair is long. It's extremely long, but their hairless face, they have a flat nose. It's primate rather than a protruding nose like a bear. The big difference there, guys, in a nose, in a bear and a primate. What is it? Yeah, exactly. There you go. What you just said. The fact that a lot of people say that they can smell them before they see them.
Yep.
That they emit whistles and screeches in the night. What does this sound like to you? I mean, this doesn't sound that far off to me.
It sounds a whole lot like what we hear reports coming in from Appalachia, the Pacific Northwest, all over the United States. It starts to kind of fall in. And further pushing that, the only track that has been pulled, that's the only plaster that I'm aware of anyway. I think it came out in 2016, 2015 was when it was poured, and it was poured by old Gatesy over with Expedition Unknown.
Oh, that was 2007.
2007, so my timeline's off.
He had
that long?
He had two expeditions. He did one in 2007 and one in, I think, 2016.
Okay, that's the one I remember.
The 2007 expedition was the one where he got the actual cast of the prints that he found.
Wow.
So those casts were pulled by Josh Gates, and they don't look like the shifting cast at all. What they do look a whole lot like
a Bigfoot cast
we pull out of the woods here.
Right.
All the way down to the mid-tarsal break.
Oh, wow.
Oh, goodness. So here we are looking at this creature that is obviously, we're not seeing this big white-haired monster with blue skin. They're seeing
I think it's important that we talk about that whole white thing that you're talking about, the white blue skin thing. Snowman, right? Abominable snowman. Well, we know that snowman, I mean, it's snowing, it's a man. I think it was taken too literal is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, right.
Because the term Yeti is actually the Sherpa word yate. Ya, rock or cliff, and te, animal.
Yep.
What's that tell you? Cliff animal, rock animal. It may well have been called a rock man, but what's that tell you there? Stone man,
we have a stone man here.
That's what I'm saying. this is the same terminologies. It's just spoken in different words.
Use.
Yep. Yep.
By cultures that are never connected in any way. These
That we
cultures
know
were
of.
never connected, and yet they have the same stories. This is the same kind of thing with the pyramids, with all of this stuff. How do all of these cultures that are so different and so separated seem to have the same kind of stories and the same kind of legends?
I know that one, but I know.
But were they always separated? Tune in for a different episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Coming soon.
So yeah, but you're 100% right. You see this terminology that's being used by these vastly different cultures that is so very similar, all the way from the Himalayas to Vietnam with the rock apes, and then when you come here to the States, you have the ancient Cherokee before. Oh, I can't remember what they went by before they were the Cherokee, but their terminology for the stone man and the stone giant. You're dealing with this same kind of terminology over and over and over and over and over. And then you can't help but think, well, in the First Nations lore, this was something that had kind of impenetrable fur because it rolled around in gravel after playing in the mud. And it got matted to its skin, and it made it like impenetrable to having a spear or an arrow shot at it. Or were they calling these things the rock animals because something like Ape Canyon, where there are rocks being thrown from on high, because you have this massive altitude and the canyon walls going through this area are so steep that in just a couple hundred yards, you've moved thousands of feet in altitude. So, you've got all these different things that are being used over and over and over from various cultures, and you can't help but wonder why.
You could also say, you say we'll say this man is as big as a mountain. It could be something like that. This creature was as big as a mountain. It was a rock, a stone giant. You know what I'm saying? So it's maybe it's sort of like a euphemism in a way, that this thing is so large that it's as large as a mountain or as large as the cliffs, that it's these things are reported to be, some people reported them to be like 20 feet tall in some of the native lore. You could say to a Sherpa or the Nepalese people, that would be as big as a mountain.
Yeah, because the Nepalese people, let's keep in mind that we're not talking about Anglo-Saxons here. We're talking about people who are on average like upper 4 feet, lower 5 feet. Like, you are a very, very large Nepalese person if you were 5'3", 5'4". Like, you are big compared to them,
So a creature that is, I mean, as a euphemism, that would be as big as a mountain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or was that a metaphor or a euphemism? It's a metaphor?
Yeah, I don't know.
Think both. Euphemism.
No, I don't know.
Never mind. We're not doing English here. All right.
No, we can't do that.
All right, back to snow giant.
Yeah. Back to now. I can kind of see too where some of the white hair stuff was pulled in from various other animals. There are a plethora of mammals and birds that do change color in the winters. If they live down in the lowlands, their fur is brown, but as soon as the snow falls and they start moving to higher altitudes, guess what? That fur turns white. Where the blue skin come from, I can't tell you.
That's artistic. That's artistic.
That's just
show cold.
Yeah.
That's what that is. That's a
it's
cold
just trying to
color,
show.
and yeah, that's what that was.
But Bumble was probably one of the best representations of the abominable snowman ever.
Yeah.
Because they used Bumble as and they went with some of those more exaggerated sizes, like what Jess was saying with the 20-foot tall. Bumble was gigantic, even in comparison to the human figure in the show. But he was this big, unruly, mean thing that turned out being something that saved the day,
Right.
And you can't say that isn't necessarily part of the lore with the Tibetan people, because this creature isn't this big, ominous, scary thing. It's often seen as a blessing, something that, if you see one or experience one, you're either cursed or blessed. It's one of the two. It just depends, I guess, on what day it is and how you're feeling.
I guess it would. Yeah.
But we have stories of one of the more recent ones that has come out is a man who was actually ran down by a Yeti and charged, and physical contact was made. Like, this thing body checked him like a linebacker and basically told him to get out, get away, leave. But beyond the body check, that was it. Like, it grunted at him and he was like petrified. He took the message and left and said, this is their area. This is their territory. I'm not to go into that area.
Mm.
And referencing what we talked about earlier, the Nepalese people, just like the First Nations people here, there's certain areas they're like, we don't go there.
Yeah.
Yetis over there, we don't go there. Nope, not happening. We'll go this way. Yeah, it's the long way around. But Yetis over there, we don't go there.
Makes sense. I mean, not only does it make sense because of some of the legends that are associated with it, ripping people apart and whatnot. That's always pleasant. But, I mean, it makes sense, especially if it is some sort of a sacred protector of the area or something like that. You don't go up there. I'm going to stay over here.
Well, one of my favorite stories, because we're talking about the whole mean Yeti. We don't go over there because we don't want to get ripped apart, because there are some of those stories of bad encounters. But there is a story. It's in the very strong in the Nepalese culture, and it is portrayed. There's art representing it in the Mountain Museum in Nepal. And it is about a Tibetan Buddhist, and his he was going away and setting himself apart from everybody, and was meditating, trying to just reach inner enlightenment and become a better person. And during his time, there was a Yeti that found him, and the Yeti regularly brought this man food, water, even fuel to kind of keep the fires going and to cook with. And it is said that this Yeti even became a Buddhist disciple. Mm. So this Yeti would meditate with the monk. And when the Yeti died, and you'll see where this all ties in. The monk, whose name was Sangwa Dorje, retained the scalp of the Yeti. And this scalp was allegedly put in Pengbok Gompa, the monastery that was founded, and it became the Pengbok scalp that is so revered.
Right.
And allegedly belongs to the one that's there allegedly belongs to a goat.
Right.
But that's the story of that scalp and how it got there. And it's so ingrained in the culture, not just that this scalp was found, but this Yeti actually became a Buddhist disciple. It was bringing this monk food and supplies and taking care of this monk while he was out far away and off from the rest of his people.
Well, I did see also that, that was one of the thoughts that one of the stages of reincarnation, that you could go into an animal and they may be one of the animals that some of these people go into,
Yeah.
So I'm not going to dismiss it. Who knows?
There's this a story that I read that was about this female Yeti that kidnapped a man, and this is kind of like an Albert Ostman type situation where the Yetis or the Sasquatch kidnap the man and take him there, and she bred with the man. They had a male and a female child, and then he got away and took the son with him back to the village. But the female Yeti like cannibalized her daughter after that. So there's a lot of like terrifying Yeti tales as well. There's all these benevolent tales, yes, but there's also just terrifying tales, and I think that's why people stay out of those mountains, and I think that's why the Nepalese people stay out of those areas.
So is it, you know, kind of like, we have to also bring this up, even though we probably do agree that there's something there that, you know, sparked these legends and is just too much of a coincidence. Tales to keep, you know, the kids out of the, you know, dangerous areas, you know, kind of like we have here, or, you know, that's a possibility, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but not an answer.
To some degree, this thing would have been used as a boogeyman.
Right, that's what I'm getting at, yeah.
You know, that's always...
Talk about some of the cool, like, DNA studies and things that have gone on with kind of the more recent stuff with the DNA studies?
Yeah, is there any proof? I mean, that's a good question.
It seems like there's been a lot of like almost getting there, and it just all falls.
Okay.
You know, you've got in 2013, Brian Sykes, he did a Yeti DNA study, and the samples that he collected turned out to be, they seem to have like the DNA of an extinct polar bear in there, like bred with a existing bear. And so what these hair samples and everything like that they thought could be Yeti were actually the remnants of what were like a hybridization of two types of bear, and is down the line of an extinct polar bear.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a really interesting study, seeing that come through, because occasionally you do run into these scenarios where bears hybridize, but you're talking about, in this case, an extinct species of polar bear.
Right.
And it was such a wild find. I mean, I'd have loved to been a part of something like that, even if you are just finding extinct polar bear DNA.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a monumental find, because these polar bears weren't even thought to have reached into that region ever. Like this completely recharted everything they thought. So it did cause a paradigm shift, even though it wasn't exactly what we were looking for.
Right. But wouldn't that also say, even with like, you know, in the North America, you know, if you have an area that could support a large bear species like that. So if you've got something that is hybridization of a existing bear species, and it's down the line from an extinct polar bear species, that's a very large bear. So if it could sustain an animal like that, couldn't it sustain an animal like the Sasquatch or the Yeti?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that keeps fueling these expeditions that continue into modern day, because there is an abundance of food there. It supports an entire colony of people in the mountains, as well as all the animals. Now, the people have found a way to live in balance with the environment there, but you're still having all these large predators. Right. Is really what it is. I mean, you're dealing with a ton of large prey items, but there's a just great extensive group of large predators that live there.
And they're living off of things like the gopal and things like that they didn't know were at those elevations. So there's all of these animals that you've got predator animals, you've got prey animals that are all at these elevations that we're just now finding out they're there. Just now finding out these animals are there, and we don't know if these are animals, right? We know these are animals, and we're just now finding out these animals are at these elevations. So if we've got something that is of a higher intelligence, who's to say that we're not finding that information because of the same reasons we're not finding Sasquatch, because it is of a higher intelligence? We're just now finding out there's goats here. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And part of the reason for that is because it's above a specific altitude. Yeah. And generally, above that specific altitude, the common knowledge was that there's not enough food to support anything up there. But they're finding goats. Then they're finding leopards that are predating on these goats.
And there's a tribe of monkey that goes up to, I think, 11,000 feet. You know, I mean, there's plenty of things living up there that we had no idea even existed or were still alive that are still up there, and they're there now, and we're just now finding out about these. So if you have something that is of a higher intelligence, I mean, how could it not evade?
And not just of a higher intelligence, but of a higher adaptability.
Right, yeah.
The reason we didn't think anything was above those altitudes is because we have a hard time above those altitudes. You don't even find people above those altitudes.
That's
so
on Everest, how that worked out for them, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you were today to hike Everest, you would essentially be hiking through a grave, a mass grave littered with confetti-collared dead bodies.
Yeah.
because of all of the people who die annually on Everest.
Yeah, and they're frozen in the ice, by the way. That's
Yep.
That's
and you become mummified. You're a permanent staple. Permanent garbage.
You're a tourist
You
attraction.
can't decay.
So if you want to become a tourist attraction, a really good tourist attraction, just go try to climb,
Just go look at the dead bodies.
Yeah.
Go try to count them.
One thing before you wrap up, did you guys see in 2020 there was a tweet by the Indian Army?
Oh, yeah. So this tweet got sent out by the Indian Army, and it wasn't just a track or a couple tracks. It was a whole track way that went on as far as the eye could see.
Yeah,
and it blew up. It became an instant media sensation. Every news outlet under the sun was carrying it because, the Indian Army posted this on Twitter. And it caught like wildfire. Ultimately, it was found out that these were not Yeti tracks. In fact, they were actually people tracks. So, there we go.
That's disappointing.
Big swing and a miss there, but
yeah, I do remember that. It was big. That went on for a few days, from what I recall.
It did, yeah. It was caught like wildfire. I remember on a couple of the forums I'm on, and then all over Facebook, it was just mass pandemonium amongst the Bigfoot community of everybody going. Yeah, everybody going from like, oh yeah, true believers to, no, that's fake. It's obviously fake. Can't you tell it's fake? And I'm like, well, how can you tell it's fake? Like, there's literally no definition to these things. They're just big holes in the snow.
That's what I remember, yeah.
And it was just a huge mess. And I wish something would have come of it. But
maybe they were just jealous of all the publicity that ufology was getting at the time and just wanted to give Yeti a little,
It popped up right in the middle of all that.
That's right.
Right in the middle of all the UFO craziness that was going on, all of a sudden the Indian Army is just like,
it was during the monolith phase, I believe.
Oh God, yeah, the monoliths. God, that was the time I like to forget.
Oh, that was such a fun time.
The good old monolith days.
The monolith eras.
I mean, to be fair, those things were well built.
Some were terrible.
Some were. The one that was here in West Virginia, that was straight garbage. Literally, it was made of garbage.
I remember the first accounts of those, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And then someone showed like an actual close up. As soon as I saw the close up, and people were still saying, "Oh my God, it's aliens! It's this! It's that! This is who could have done it?" And you could see the weld lines.
Yeah, you could see the toolings. It was so bad.
I mean, if it was aliens, then they had not had welding class.
It was bad.
It was bad. It was terrible.
That's obviously that's not the side that everybody takes pictures of.
Right.
Well,
they take pictures of the pristine side. But all right, so wrapping up the Yeti here, wrapping it up.
You can't wrap up a Yeti. It's probably not going to happen. That would be dangerous. Have you not listened to what me and Jess have been saying? You think they're fuzzy and cute and funny, but they're not. They're going to rip your arms off. Yeah.
I'd still give it a go.
Okay.
So,
well, me and Jess will be the hosts from now on, and you'll be somewhere ripped apart on mountain, Everest. Go ahead.
All right. So we've established that there is ample food for a large creature, large predators.
Yep.
Large omnivores.
That's right.
because you have lush, lower elevation land, and then you have tons of hidey holes up higher elevation between ice caverns, actual caverns, and really tight cliff faces that are just snug together that you can barely fit in, overhangs, all that good stuff. And we have all of the failed data. Really, ultimately, is what it is. A lot of failed data. A lot of swings and misses going on.
Literally, yes.
What is your all's take on the plausibility of a Yeti?
Ooh, Jess, you go first. I'm going to have to put on my thinking goggles for this.
The thinking goggles. Okay.
Oh,
sure.
Lord.
Do this.
So I'm going to be serious, okay? Somebody has to be around here. So I think the biggest point is there are so many things we don't know about these mountains. There is so much we don't know about this area at these elevations. This is the highest mountain range in the world. There are elevations that people have never been to in this mountain range. There are primates that are up to 11,000 feet. We are finding things within the past few years. We have found DNA in caves for the Denisovians. This is all new. This is all new. And to say this doesn't exist is to discount the potential of evidence that is coming out. We don't know if this could be a hybridization sort of thing between, human and primate, because there are humans, there are primates, there are old relatives of humans up there with the Denisovians. It's still an unknown, and things are still coming out as we speak right now. Because
it's what you're talking about is literally still we're in the bleeding edge of information.
Yes. This is such a harsh environment for anyone to come out and say, absolutely not. There's no way it could exist. That's absolutely foolish. That's to say that there could not exist any life beyond our planet. You have no idea. You don't know. This is on our planet, and we have no idea. These elevations are so harsh and so difficult to get to. There could easily be something there that we would never see in any of our lifetimes. So I absolutely say that the Yeti is plausible. I also defer to the people of the area that they know the difference between a bear and whatever they are describing as the Yeti. They know the difference between those two. They've seen goats. They've seen all of these animals. They would know the difference, right? And that has to be a thing that you have to kind of defer to, that you don't have some sort of knowledge above the people of the land. You just don't. And so I absolutely say the Yeti is absolutely plausible. We have so much to learn about this region. We have so much to learn about this terrain that it's absolutely foolish to say that we know everything. We're just now finding these goats up there, friends. My God, So yes, the Yeti, I think it's absolutely plausible.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to Wild and Weird Radio.
Excuse me. I do believe that she has said everything that I was going to say, so I don't need to say anything else. No. Except I will add, aliens.
Of course.
Well, no, for real. I have to do this because, we skimmed it a little bit, but it is part of the legend that these are very sacred places. Yeah. And we're going to say the same thing about over here. Some of the places where these things occur are very sacred places. All of these things are seen in areas where seems to be there's a group of people who, and I don't mean like government people, I mean like inhabitants who know that A, either we don't go there, or B, we know the rules when we do go there. And we're seeing the same thing, guys. It's just in a different part of the world. It's the exact same stories that we hear out west, in the Northwest. It's the same stuff. It's the exact same stuff. The only difference is out there, there's this alleged hollow mountain where, the gods lived or live. And it, this goes into that mythology. Well, you know what I say about mythology? And I think we all have to agree that it starts somewhere. A legend, you don't just make up a legend typically. There's a spark of truth in there somewhere. And it grows. That little spark turns into a flame, and pretty soon, you've got spaceships, I guess. But what I'm saying is that we really don't know, okay? And like Jess said, we don't know. And so stop acting like we do know. Personally, yeah, I think it's just another whatever we call Bigfoot. You know, that's what it is to me. It's not some big white thing that stumbles around in the snow. It might be white, I don't know, but it's the same thing. You're talking about the same creature. You got the same hair, you got the same smell, you got the same reports of whistles, you got feet. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And to say that it's not the same thing, or just to ignore it because it's convenient, yeah, that's ludicrous. I mean, we talk about all data on the table, and this is a huge part of the data set as far as I'm concerned. There's so many different accounts of this thing all around the world. And we could literally sit around, probably, and just go over all the different names. And they would be, I mean, come on, every country, right? Isn't it every country that has sort of a Bigfoot type creature reported?
Yeah, every continent.
I mean, as far as I know, anyway. So, yeah, I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me. Again, not a Bigfoot guy. I just know enough to, have these conversations and, bring up aliens every now and again to make people uncomfortable. But it's what I do. So, anyway, I think it's a great topic. I'm really happy we finally got to get into the Yeti, and it's a seasonal, right? And
yeah.
I know I want to do another seasonal one, so we'll have another seasonal one next week. That'll be exciting. Maybe we'll do the Grinch. No. Well,
so my take on this, I'm going to go fall back on my something that you guys have heard me say 1,000 times, especially in person. When it comes down to this kind of phenomena, whether it is real or not, whether what is being alleged is real or not, if you have, say, 1,000 reports, 999 of them could all be made up lies. Yep. But one, just one, is telling the truth. If that is the case, if just one is telling the truth, that they're experiencing something unknown or something that they claim to be a known creature to them but unknown to us, but if that person is telling the truth, then that means that there is something that we don't understand, that we can't explain, that is moving around out there in the mountains, in the wilderness, in the deserts, in the oceans, and we need to take a look deeper. And despite of past failures with various expeditions and sample testings and all the research and thefts, for that matter, it is still, with all of the modern data that's coming out now, the recent stuff, we're seeing, like Jessi said, more and more and more unknowns being uncovered in these mountains. We're seeing people have these face-to-face encounters that are giving these detailed descriptions of these creatures that are very similar to what we have reports coming in from here, and matching up with their historic reports there. So I'm going to say that it is plausible that there's at least something out there that we don't understand and is an unknown that is causing these reports to come in. What that is, we'll find out eventually. But for now, Yeti, in my book, I think everybody's kind of in consensus that it is plausible. And
three weird thumbs up.
Absolutely plausible. Yeah. If not 100%, like you said, something's there.
Something's there.
Call it what you want.
Not be,
yeah.
With the stuff that's coming out with the footprints that have been found. I mean, that's, and some of the recordings, there's actually been some recordings. The guys from Finding Bigfoot, oddly enough, they actually caught audio.
Yeah.
So, those were, that was pretty good stuff, and it was really kind of had these commonalities with what we are experiencing here out in the West. So if you guys want to catch up with us more and listen to more Wild and Weird Radio, you can head to wildandweirdwv.com.
Did you say if they want to?
Oh, yeah, that's right. You don't have a choice.
Go
hit that podcast link. Listen to all of the archived stuff. right? Go start downloading, listen to it.
You will do this. You're doing it wrong. You will go to the podcast. That's
if you've had a sighting report, you want to send in, you can contact us at wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. Just send in your report, or you can hit the contact us link on the website, and it's going to give you our SSR, our standardized sighting report page that you can go through and fill in all the data. We've now got a much larger footprint than we once had, because with the assist coming in from Hellbent Holler down farther south from us, if you are anywhere from the North Georgia area all the way into North Carolina, if you're experiencing something weird, if you're experiencing something weird, send it in. We'll get it into the right hands, and we'll get boots on the ground. So it'll be a good time, guys. I promise you that. So with that said,
do we have anything else to do, Joe, the rest of this year? No one can see us anymore, right, until next year.
Nope.
Is that correct?
Yep. Till next year.
Wow. So
we're folded up
here, right?
Folded up till February, man.
Yeah, so that's it, guys. The only way that you're going to be able to see us is what I'm saying. He doesn't quite understand, because he doesn't. Is you're going to have to tune in to the radio to see us, right?
Tune into YouTube. So you can find the Wild and Weird Radio on YouTube. You can also find Wild and Weird West Virginia's research studies on YouTube, as well as Hellbent Holler's research and all of their updates as well on YouTube. So there are 3 YouTube channels. You definitely want to go smash that subscribe button. Otherwise, there is a Yeti wandering around in the Himalayas that is going to die if you don't mash that button.
Yeah,
right
you
now.
guys saved you saved that Bigfoot last week.
You did.
You did. Honestly.
So we got to make sure we can save this Yeti that's cruising around.
Yes.
It is depending on you guys.
Yes,
you got to subscribe to all 3. Wild and Weird West Virginia.
Holler.
That's actually where Wild and Weird Radio is at. So basically, you just got to only subscribe to 2. But smash that notification bell too. Go subscribe to Hellbent Holler and hit the notification bell. That way you get updates to your phone directly whenever new content is posted by either us or Hellbent Holler. Trust me, you're going to want to do it. Go share with your friends. Spread it out all around, just like Christmas cheer.
It is like Christmas cheer, isn't it? Except for it'll chase you down and rip your arms off.
It is Krampusnacht, after all.
It is.
So, if you guys don't go subscribe and listen in and all that good stuff now,
you're getting beat tonight.
A Yeti's going to die, and you're going to get stuffed in a sack and beat with sticks. It's not by us, though.
Extra for that, okay?
All right, guys.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for tuning into Wild and Weird Radio. Go do all the stuff we told you to do, and then some, and stay wild and weird.
Bye.